Welcome to the 240th episode of the Jami Dulaney Plant-Based Wellness Podcast. My name is Jami Dulaney, and I'm your host. I'm a plant-based cardiologist and endurance athlete living in Southwest Florida. Thank you for listening. Although I live in Southwest Florida, I just came back from Houston, where I was visiting my favorite dietitian, Addie Majnaric, and we did a half marathon along with Michael Hubbard. So welcome, Addie.
Hello. In Houston, we had no problems. We had a great time.
Yes, we did. So, I have to say right up front, I'm a mother and I was a little concerned, not so much about the actual running of a half marathon, but Addie had actually had a bronchitis a week or so before, and she had a little vertigo. Well, she had a lot of vertigo about 4 days before. And so as a mother physician, I was prepared to pull the plug at any point during the race. So much that I'm going to let Addie know a little secret right now that she did not know beforehand.
Oh,
Is
no.
that I gave your husband, our strength coach, Nathan Majnaric, a map of the course. And at my call, we were going to pull the plug and he was going to pick us up. So he had his marching order from Mama J that we were, if she looked the least little bit off, that we were going to pull the plug because we were all going to finish the marathon or the half marathon healthy. And I will say that I looked over it a couple times and you looked more than wonderful. You looked great. We were all happy. We did a nice, easy pace, not sluggish, but we did a nice, steady pace and took appropriate pregnant bathroom breaks. And
about only four, I will say.
Yeah, 4 bathroom breaks. And we still finished in actually a very good time, for a nice, easy pace. So it was great. So I'll tell you, congratulations again.
Well, thank you. And it was fun. I think it was the first run that we've done together in a long time. So that was great. And the marathon itself, we kept saying over and over again, if you want to run a really great marathon in what is now my favorite city, but a really well-organized race, the Houston Chevron Marathon is it. Yeah. I was blown away.
There were a lot of runners, but they had us corralled and they put time between the corrals. So when we actually got started, we didn't have to wait or zigzag or anything. So you could pretty much just start and run in a straight line. There weren't a lot of times if there's open corrals, people are worried about not making a finish cutoff. So they try to sneak up into the fast corral. And then when you get started, everybody bunches up for 10 miles. Marine Corps is a little bit like that. It takes a long time to have some comfortable running space. But this was good running space from the beginning. If you're a runner, you know that Porta Johns are very important, and they had more than I've ever seen in any of my 25 plus marathons, banks of 7 and 8 at just about every age station.
Every mile. It was really about every mile. And I will say for all you pregnant runners out there, you would have appreciated it, as did I. So it was great having that. And the aid stations are great. And like you said, we kept it nice and at a steady pace the whole time. We did, after I think 6 miles in, we did a walk run ratio of 3 minutes running, 30-second walk. And then, I kept my heart rate anywhere from the 130s to 140s, which was, conversational pace for me, which is what I was looking for. And I thought it went really well. And you, let's not put this lightly, basically ran a marathon the weekend because you had a training run for the Austin Marathon that you're doing in February. And you did 12 miles on Saturday?
Yes, I did 12 on Saturday and 13 on Sunday. And let's go back to the heart rate real quick, though, because, when we look at heart rate, you're 27. So a rough guesstimate, 220 minus your age, and you'd like to stay below 85% on a regular run, push it at the end maybe. So, a pregnancy heart rate, we have to remember that the baby's heart rate is a lot faster.
Right.
So that's the reason for keeping the heart rate down. And you can tell conversation, if you can, I've always told people, if you can say the Pledge of Allegiance or have a nice conversation, your heart rate is pretty good.
And the main recommendation too for exercise, especially cardiovascular exercise during pregnancy, isn't even necessarily heart rate based. It's kind of an old school way of thinking from all the research I did when I first found out that I was pregnant. Now it's more based off of perceived exertion. So, you can go to a moderately vigorous exertion level, but really low to mid-level exertion is where you want to keep it. And it's really more so focused on being aware of how you feel in that point of time. Now, I always took into account my heart rate as well, because I just know typically if I was going to race a half, I'd be, I usually can push it, 160s if I'm really pushing it, and hold that for a while just from my rowing days. But, so I like to keep it around the 130s, 140s for me, but I knew how I felt as well. So, I felt like we could have kept going for a while. I wasn't dreading the finish. I wasn't, really looking forward to, oh my gosh, how many more seconds until that walk break comes up. It was very comfortable, which is what, from all the research I did, what the recommendation predominantly is.
Well, and just as a mother cardiologist, I will say that I was very interested in heart rate. One, because if you're anemic, so if somebody runs anemic, their heart rate will be higher at baseline. But again, you're trying to deliver oxygen to two different people now. And so, yes, that perceived exertion, but some people get used to a higher heart rate at rest if they happen to be, anemic or they're somewhat dehydrated. So, I think it's a good idea. I really like the idea of having a heart rate to look at that and correlate with your perceived exertion.
Mm-hmm.
You were a Division I athlete, so you pretty much have what my perceived effort is and what my heart rate, you kind of have those numbers, you can dial it in. You can probably look down and know what your heart rate is for the most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that it is important. And, for all runners out there, again, when we cross that 85% of your predicted max, and that 220 minus your age is just a guideline. But when you cross over that 85%, now you're starting to generate more lactic acid, and your ability to sustain that pace is probably going to go down rather quickly. So if you hit that from the beginning,
Right.
you're gonna meet that big brick wall someplace, and make it a lot less comfortable. The other
Mm-hmm.
thing is, when your heart rate is down, you're able to fuel your body using your fat stores as opposed to all carbohydrates. So you have limited stores of carbohydrates, but we all have endless stores of fat. And so if you can keep that heart rate down, you're conserving energy. You're not becoming as lactic, you're not generating as much lactic acid, and it's going to make for a more comfortable race for most people. That being said, if you're going to race it and you're not pregnant, then go for it after a while and let her rip and see what you got. But so I think we did a good job paying attention to that. There were 2 heart attacks at the Houston Marathon, and I believe both were in the full division, the 74-year-old man and 50-some-year-old guy. The last podcast I talked a little bit about your aorta becomes more compliant and it improves the elasticity of the aorta training for a marathon, in one of the research studies. That said, it's not, hey, Dr. Dulaney said go out and run a marathon, but I don't need to train. I'm in pretty good shape because I go to the gym 3 days a week. It is something you need to train for. And nutrition is paramount importance, because if you're doing the donut runs where you're having vasoconstriction or your cholesterol's high, that's when this risk really starts to increase. So you can be a skinny guy and have really high cholesterol, really high blood pressure. And just because you run doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be immune to problems. And the finish line is the most common area for somebody to go down, because all of a sudden you stop and the blood goes to your feet and the blood pressure drops, and people can have arrhythmias. So that's why they typically, when you finish a marathon, they keep you walking. And we walked quite a bit on this one. Walked through the chute, down the road into the convention center, and so we walked probably another half mile, to catch our bling and our water after we were done, which I think is a great thing.
Absolutely. And I think, talking about training and then kind of going back to, pregnancy and being pregnant and doing this, that was, another big thing is, a recommendation for any kind of endurance running, and non-contact sports, if you're already at a certain level of fitness and you have the okay from your doctor and everything is fine, blood work, heart rate, all your checkups are good, you are generally recommended to keep doing the activity level depending on how you feel throughout pregnancy. Now, if you've never run a half marathon or a long distance race or anything like that before, it's not recommended that you start training for that once you've become pregnant. It is, however, recommended that you still begin some form of physical activity because of the numerous benefits of exercise during pregnancy. But I think, going back to that training portion, I had been at a baseline level. I did the ultra last April, and then a half in March, and then a half in October. So, I've been at half marathon base, which is what I like to keep myself at for the majority of the time going into this. So this wasn't anything astronomical in terms of, out of my ordinary activity level. But it is recommended, trying to get anywhere from 20 to 30 minutes if you're just starting. If you aren't physically active and become pregnant, it is recommended, to start adding in 20 to 30 minutes most days of the week of some kind of walking or light activity to start stimulating that movement. Because, birth is an athletic endeavor, we'll put it that way. And so training so that you have the stamina to complete that feat as well is important, but doing that within, your health limits and under the supervision of a physician.
Yes. And then, the other thing that you learned through your pregnancy is your nutrition requirements really bumped up during and immediately after your runs.
Yes. So, and even actually before. So I quickly noticed, well, first trimester, I was very tired. A baby boy wore me out and I was pretty nauseous most of the day. So activity levels adjusted slightly for that. But I also noticed that, if I fueled more prior to working out, I felt better during and especially after. I wasn't tanking after, because before pregnancy, for most running, especially if it's not a long run, it's an hour or under, I would not eat before going out for a run. I would just fuel up after. But now, getting in anywhere from 100 to 200 calories sometime, an hour to a half hour before I would head out for a run. Anything more than just 3 miles was really paramount for me to complete it and not have, the lead legs and low energy levels, and then really bonking afterwards and getting quite fatigued after I finished. So before, trying to get some calories in, drinking much more consistently before and during, my hydration, which I'm going to try to continue after pregnancy because I've really gotten much better and more in tune with my hydration levels, and I feel better all over for that. But during, again, if I'm going for more than 3 miles, I'm going to start adding in some gels or chews or some fruit. If I typically do a lap, a couple miles with Haas, my German Shepherd, and then drop him off, grab some water, grab a little, 100 calories amount, and go back out for more if it's going to be more than those 3 miles, just so that I am not burning through my glycogen stores, keeping at a maintained level. And so my calories stay balanced too, because obviously I'm not trying to lose weight. I'm trying to maintain my calories throughout the run, that baby on board is also not calorie deficient.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah.
So I think we did about every 2 miles, I think we did during the race as well. I started at, we had oatmeal before, and then at mile 4 is when I started taking nutrition. I sipped on water the whole time, but then I would take in a gel or of some form of nutrition, about 100 to 150 calories every 2 miles after that.
I, on the other hand, decided to make it a smorgasbord. And, when I'm running hard, I usually stick to water, and then I do gels. I like the chews when we're going slow. Bonk Bar makes some chews, but I find them hard to eat if I'm huffing and puffing. But since we were going at more conversational pace, we just had such a great time,
We did.
waving at people, high fiving,
Photo ops.
thanking you, doing thank yous, taking photo ops. So I partaked in some orange slices, and then I partake. I'm not sure which one that is, but I had a banana. I felt well. And then somebody they had pickle juice, and a lot of people use pickle juice in long bike rides and some of the ultras. And so Michael picked up a little thing. He's like, "You want to try it?" So I tried some of the pickle. It's just like in a little container.
Right after the banana.
Yeah, not too long after the banana. That is not a good combination. I didn't like that so much. So had I been running faster, a harder pace, that was not upset very well at all. It gives you electrolytes and salt. That's about all it's good for. There's certainly no calorie in the pickle juice. So you'd have to take some form of nutrition in anyway. So I don't think that I'd ever partake in that, because again, it's
maybe a little better after than during.
Yeah, sweet. You kind of have to pick your poison. You're going to go the sweet route or the savory route for your nutrition. And most people, just because you need glucose, you need something sweet. So to mix pickle juice and sweet is, I don't know that everybody can do that.
I think that's another big part to the training as well, is once you get into a longer distance type of event, you are not only training your muscles and your cardiovascular system, from a dietitian standpoint, you're also training your digestion and what your GI tract can handle. And so once you start doing any type of training run, if you are thinking about doing a half or a full, after an hour of activity is when you would want to start taking in some form of calories. And you can usually space that out to every 30 minutes or so. But you want to train doing that. So on race day, to the good doctor, you aren't doing anything that you didn't do during training. But obviously this is a fun run for her. I was way slower than the Boston qualifier level of pace this time around. But you don't want to do anything crazy during a race nutrition wise that you have not done in training, just because your GI tract will respond differently to food during the run than it would outside of the run. So you want to train like you race and race like you trained.
All right, because the higher your heart rate is too, the harder it is. You divert blood flow away from your GI tract, so you're not going to absorb it as well. So, when people just try to pour calories in because they haven't trained and you feel bad and your heart rate's high, you're not going to get the benefit of those calories because your heart rate's too high to absorb. And most of the time, women can tolerate somewhere between 100 to 200 calories an hour. Men are more like 2 to 250, 175 to 250 an hour. That's kind of the ballpark figure. Sometimes people can do more. Sometimes people can, need less. But again, it depends on heart rate. So, you can't fix everything with nutrition. You can make it worse.
And you want to stick to more simple carbohydrate sources, avoiding high protein, high fat sources, because that's going to be the absolute easiest for your body to digest.
Actually, these things that have branched chain amino acids and fats, you do not need any fat while you're running. It's not going to help you other than cause inflammation and potentially cause GI disturbance.
Putting it politely.
Putting it lightly. And then, the branched chain amino acids that, everybody tries to sell us, oh, this is a great thing. They're actually been shown to increase risk for cancer. So it's not something you want to do. Isolated branched chain amino acids in a large quantity. So just stick to, you need glucose. You have plenty of fat on board already, even the Kenyans, and get something you like. I typically rotate. I rotate what I take in so I don't get tired of gels. I remember my first marathon, I did red Gatorade and chocolate goo. And I did that for the whole 6 months training and the marathon. And to this day, I don't like looking at red Gatorade. I don't like looking at any Gatorade, and I don't like looking at chocolate goo. So just one of those things.
Yeah, no, I can't do the orange Gatorade after our orange themed basketball team season. Ruined it for me. But anyway,
the jammers.
the jammers.
If there are any jammers out there listening, please feel free to email me and let me know how you're doing. I was the head coach of a 13-year-old travel basketball team with bright orange uniforms and bright orange Gatorade. So yeah, in another time. There might be one out there that became plant-based. I don't know.
I did.
Yeah, exactly. So you used a unique device that helped you out for, again, we're going to shout out to pregnant moms out there that are running some things that might be helpful.
Absolutely. So as your belly grows, a lot of people can experience, if you're lucky enough to continue to run, and, high five to anyone doing any kind of physical activity. I was not, trying to showboat in any way, shape, or form. Happy that I was able to do it, because I know several runners who are not able to run through pregnancy due to pelvic floor pain, hip and back pain, sciatica. These are often things that happen, especially as that baby grows and things start to shift. But, what helped me a lot is, we have that round ligament pain. So if some of you have been pregnant or currently pregnant, know what I'm talking about. Some extra support around your lower abdominal region is lovely. And I highly recommend the Gabriella belly band. So it is adjustable. It Velcros. I kind of joked around with Nathan when I first put it on that I look like one of the old retired guys who works at Lowe's. With the back support bands that we see, Sunday afternoons. But so it was extremely helpful, though, because after about 20 weeks, I really popped. And I think you were even surprised to see how much I had popped.
When you in a few weeks, yeah.
Because we had just seen each other at Christmas time. And I did, coming back from New Year's, I did a 4-mile run on a Friday, and I didn't pull out she got it for me for Christmas. I hadn't pulled it out yet from my packages. And I felt my hips were just kind of a mess. I felt all over the place. My alignment was off. And I knew the next day I had a long run, and I was either going to do well in the long run and keep my goal of the half, or I was going to pull the plug. And I put that belly band on for my 10-mile run the next day, and I felt like a new woman. So that was huge. That was very, very helpful. I just felt way more secure. I didn't have any of the round ligament pain. I felt like my back was a little bit more secured, as well as we get that adjustment in posture as your belly grows. So that was huge. That was part of my altered running gear. And then the maternity leggings for all runners out there. I did a lot of research on running tights, because I am, running in pregnant in the winter time. I know winter in Houston is not really winter up north, but fun facts, Gap Fit, this is not a sponsor, but I am so happy with these maternity running tights. I got full length and capris. They were fabulous. But other than that, everything else is pretty normal. But those were my 2 maternity add-ons that were a godsend. So that was great to find before.
Perfect. Do you have anything else you want to mention before we move on to a little bit?
I don't think so. I think the biggest thing is, if you are going to stay active, which you should, through pregnancy, is the biggest thing is, appropriate weight gain. So we know that, you obviously are going to gain some weight during pregnancy, and dependent on your BMI, prior to pregnancy, you have different weight gain protocols, which your OBGYN can go over with you. But for me, being in a normal BMI range prior to pregnancy, anywhere from 20 to 30 pounds, upwards of 35 is seen as healthy for someone of my weight prior to pregnancy. And so my main concern was that first trimester, you don't really need to gain too much, maybe a few pounds. But, second trimester, we're doing a large portion of growing baby, and then into the third, so that your weight gain is still appropriate. Because if we're burning calories and we're pregnant, we need to make sure that we're doubly refueling, but in an appropriate amount, so that you're not over consuming calories, because we don't want anything like hypertension and gestational diabetes occurring. But I think the biggest thing is making sure that you are aware, and that's where the heart rate also comes in, your exertion, how to replenish for the activity so that you maintain your weight, but then also are able to add the appropriate calories on top of that to continue growing appropriately through your pregnancy. That's the biggest thing with any kind of activity during pregnancy. We're not using it as weight loss. It is purely a source of, it's been great for me to have a constant. And it's been great to have, something kind of normal as all these changes that are beautiful and wonderful, but there are a lot of changes happening. So it's been helpful on that end, but also, again, getting stronger for that delivery. It's been shown that, there are studies done retrospectively that women who are physically active throughout their pregnancy, to the best of their ability, have shorter labor times, decreased need for medical intervention, healthier baby weights, as well as healthier weight gain for mom, and stamina during labor, as well as the ability to bounce back and have that muscle tone afterwards to take care of yourself and baby. So all good things. Just make sure everything's on the up and up while you're training.
I'm going to let Addie go because she has some work to do, but we want to talk to you about the immersion week, or the immersion vacation, as we should call it now, thanks to Karen Hartglass. But the week before we have our fifth annual Charlotte County Plant-Based Nutrition Conference, we're going to have an immersion week for a limited number of people. So if you'd like to take a vacation in a sunny area and you like to exercise, or you'd like to learn more about exercise, if you'd like to learn more about plant-based nutrition, you'd like to learn more about health and wellness, this is your vacation. So we're offering an immersion week that Addie and I will both be involved in intimately, with your exercise, your nutrition classes, your cooking demos, and we'll have great food, great entertainment, and it will culminate with the conference on Saturday. We'll be doing medical and dietary evaluations at the beginning and the end of the week as well. So, it's going to be an intensive program for people that are really interested in, one, doing a vacation someplace nice, two, becoming healthy while doing it, because typically when people go on vacation, they just gain a bunch of weight and get sick. So this is a good way to have a vacation and have a great time and get healthier.
Absolutely. And you can bring someone along that's maybe a family member and do it together. That's fun. Or just come on your own and meet some people who are also on this journey. So I think that that's a fun aspect of it too, gain additional support. It's a vacation where you can, look forward to leaving on the other side healthier and having a really in-depth experience on how you can become empowered and take control of your health, and then finish the week out with a great conference lineup. I am really, really excited. I'm excited every year for the conference, but this year's going to be, I think, the best yet.
Yeah, I do. So we'll have the conference, Karen Hartglass, Pam Parper, yourself, and me giving lectures. We're going to do them in a fun TED type format. So they're going to be short lectures, multiple lectures, cooking demo, in a great location at Port Charlotte Beach Complex. Great food, great interaction, all positive, learn a lot, meet people like-minded. So everybody complains, when they go on vacation, nobody wants to eat what they want to eat. So you have you'll have the potential to have a week where everybody's eating great, good food. And at the conference, everybody's eating great food. So go on over to the website, drdulaney.com. It's DOCTORDULANEY.com, and you can sign up. It'll give you a link to go to eventbrite.com and sign up. If you have some questions, you can certainly email us, Jami or Addie at drdulaney.com, and we can answer all your questions. But get your tickets for the conference. Think about getting this booked early, because time is running out for flights and hotels and all this kind of thing. So part of the package does include your hotel stay as available. So hop on over there to check that out. So Addie, I think you have to leave me now.
Yes, I have to go talk to someone about their nutrition. So I will have to say farewell for now, friends. But thanks again, Mom, for a really great race weekend, and happy, healthy New Year to all of you, since this is my first time on the podcast for 2020.
All right. Talk to you soon.
All right. Bye-bye.
So just to finish up today, I wanted to talk about, a little study that came out in the Journal of American Medical Association, looking at low-fat diets and low-carbohydrate diets, and is one better than the other, or is one worse than the other? And, as you might guess, it turns out that if you eat a very unhealthy low-fat diet, you can have an increased mortality. If you have eat a very low or an unhealthy low carbohydrate diet, you can also have an increased mortality. So when people are looking at diets and fad diets, it's really more about looking at what's healthy. We know um, places where there's less cancer, eat more fiber. If you're eating a very low carbohydrate diet or an animal-based diet, you're going to have trouble getting your fiber. You're going to have trouble getting micronutrients. If you're eating a junk food vegan diet, it's going to tend to be high in oil, low in good protein sources, and it might be more unhealthy as well. Cognizant of what are the components of a good diet, and follow those. So yeah, that's kind of why I like plant-based nutrition, is that everything that we need as humans or as animals in general, we can get from plants. Only plants can fix nitrogen. That means only plants can make amino acids. Animals have to eat the plants to be able to get amino acids to generate to make proteins and to make some of these essential proteins. So we have to start with the plant there. Same thing with essential fatty acids. They all come from plants. So as long as we're eating plants and not processed box foods, we're going to get plenty of great nutrients. And the thing that most Americans are deficient in is fiber. And so you want to try to get 50, 70 grams of fiber a day. And it's almost impossible to do that on a high animal product diet or a high processed diet. The last thing I want to talk about is an article that talks about the backlash over meat industry recommendations, raises questions about corporate ties to nutritional science. So if you remember, the Annals of Internal Medicine earlier or late last year put out these recommendations that said maybe red meat is not all that bad, but they were criticized widely, and a lot of people got upset, including Neil Barnard at PCRM and Dr. Katz, and Dr. Willett and Dr. Hugh from Harvard Public Health. And, basically some of the things were that they used faulty statistics, this grade method that takes into account, well, people like red meat, and if they don't know how to cook it and they don't want to give it up, then maybe that's part of it. So Dr. Katz, Dr. Willett, and Dr. Hugh actually contacted the editor-in-chief, Christine Lane, who's MD, MPH, has an MD and a Master's of Public Health, and asked her to shut down or retract the article about the red meat. And she didn't. And since that time, she sent over 2,000 emails, to the point where she had to shut down her email account because they were so strongly worded, some of them. So there's been this big backlash and fight now. Some of the people are saying sour grapes to the plant-based people because it doesn't give them the, it's not according to what we believe. And of course, most of the people also say, well, these guys had huge ties to the beef industry. One of the main, people that wrote an editorial from Indiana School of Medicine saying, that's why people are, moaning because they didn't get the answer they wanted. In Indiana School of Medicine, there's no animals there, right? The author of the paper, Johnston from Texas A&M, an associate professor of medicine, he's the one that decided to use this grade framework. The final recommendation or guidelines, there were 14 people that sat on a panel. 3 of them dissented, so that left 11 people from 7 different countries that decided upon this. So, it was, very flawed and kind of came out of nowhere. And, the main criticism is that nutritional studies are very hard to do because they're not like pharmaceutical studies or drug studies. A drug like a statin, they give people the medication, and if they tolerate it for what we call wash-in for 2 or 3 weeks, then those people are randomized to a placebo-controlled trial for a specific period of time, usually fairly short. Some of them are a little bit longer, but they're certainly not for 30 years for the most part of these they're weeks to months long. The thing about the drug studies is, again, remember, if you didn't tolerate the drug, you didn't get it, so you didn't get to be in the study. So all those people that had side effects are never included. So we think that these randomized controlled trials are the ultimate way to study things, but yet they're flawed in their own accounts by who we choose, who's paying for them, what are we looking for, what statistics are we using. But we hang on to this as physicians and scientists as these are the ultimate way to do a test. Well, you can't do that with a nutritional study. You can't give people plant food versus animal food, and they know what they're getting, and then follow them for 25 or 30 years, and you have to rely on people cooking the food and doing what you tell them, and so it's absolutely impossible. So so that's always been the big criticism of plant-based nutrition. They've even kicked it back, saying that, well, Dr. Katz and Dr. Willett, they're tied to industry that support plant-based nutrition. Dr. Bernard is tied to animal activism, so they're biased as well in their research. The bottom line is, it's hard to find anybody that's not too tied. If you're doing research and you're in academia, your life depends on getting grants. And most of the grants come from private industry now, whether it's nutritional grants or whether it's pharmaceutical grants. So there are going to be these biases. So it makes actually looking at some of these nutritional studies difficult. The PCRM and Dr. Bernard were criticized for being less than 10% people at nutrition less than 10% of the members are physicians. Dr. Katz was criticized being tied to the Kind bars, and he had grants from the Hershey industry. So, I mean, everybody's pointing fingers. It sounds like politics as usual. I guess the bottom line from all of this is, we need to step back. Nutrition and food is, it's more of an observation. Let's look at, again, I think we go back to the blue zone. People ate predominantly plant-based nutrition. They lived well. We know that people that eat a high-fat, high-cholesterol diet don't do well. I mean, we look at the population, it's just population observation. And, again, I think it goes back to, if we just take a moment and step back, our population is becoming more and more obese. There are more and more additives to our food. We all agree that simple sugars, high fructose corn syrup, and added oils to foods make them more calorie dense and more toxic. All our processed foods have all those, as well as multiple other chemicals. Processed foods, animal products, don't have fiber. We all agree that a high fiber diet is good as far as preventing GI cancers, as far as decreasing heart disease, as far as improving gut microbe and diversity. So if fiber only comes from plants, and we know eating these other toxins are associated with processed foods, we can just be reasonable people and say that, a diet mainly focusing on whole foods from fruits and vegetables and whole grains would be the best thing for a population to eat. Can I prove without a certain of a doubt that eating a piece of salmon once a year is going to make people live less than people that don't? I can't prove that. I'll never be able to prove that. But the question is, why do you need to eat the salmon? We know it has other toxicities. It comes in a package that has things that we don't need. So it's not a necessity that we actually eat it. So, you have to end up at the end of the day, do what's best for you. The other problem that I have with all this, if people, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, then before you know it, they're eating all the processed food. So you have to draw the line. We have such an abundance of things to choose from to eat today that we have to look and say, okay, just because something is convenient, it's cooked for me, it's prepared, it's in a bag, is that the best for me? Is that the best for the environment? Is that the best for my future, for the world's future? And, I think that when it comes down to plant-based nutrition, we have it all ways down. It's better for the environment, it's better for the animals, and it's better for people. So, it's a shame that that politics is bleeding over into science, and money bleeds over into science. But I think if you just step back and realize that, keep things simple, I guess, is the bottom line. Keep things simple and just a little common sense. And by the way, I'm not sponsored by anybody. This podcast is not sponsored by anybody. I don't have any vitamin companies in the waiting room. And, maybe that's why I sleep really good at night. And my family practices this kind of plant-based nutrition. I believe Dr. Esselstyn's family practices this kind of nutrition. We all have to make a living, but I think you have to, most of us do it in the most honest way that we possibly can. So thank you for listening. I hope you liked my rant at the end or tolerated it, and go out and run. Enjoy a marathon. Enjoy a half marathon. Get sunshine. Eat whole foods close to their natural form, and I'll talk to you in a week.